Very pleased to have you all today. My name is Floriane Limbert. I work in the EMLYON alumni team, and I will be your moderator today for this webinar. Thank you very much again for joining the 7th session of our series of webinar called Employability World Tour. This series is a monthly webinar. It's a world tour to meet EMLYON alumni and recruitment experts around the globe, and it aims at presenting the employment specificities in 10 different countries. We have already covered 6 countries: Morocco, Germany, United Kingdom, China, India, and Japan. If you are interested in one of these countries, the replays of our webinars are available on the EMLYON alumni platform. So all of these webinars take place on the 2nd Tuesday of each month until July 2022. They are free of charge, of course, and open to all students and alumni. Feel free to join us for this world tour and discover the next destinations together. So today, we are going to discover a very attractive destination as far as employment is concerned, so Australia. I would like to thank warmly our 3 speakers, Pooja, Pierre-Yves, and Leo, who will share their expertise and knowledge of the Australian job market with you today. Just a quick note to tell you that Leo and Pierre-Yves are both our EMLYON alumni ambassadors in Sydney. Now, just a quick note on the technical aspects of this webinar. So we kindly ask you to stay on mute during the speakers' presentations. However, feel free to open your microphone during the Q&A session. If you have any questions during the speaker presentations, feel free to write them down in the discussion box. Also, you are more than welcome to open your camera. This session is being recorded, so it can be shared with the students and alumni who were not able to attend the session today. So now I would like to turn to our speakers who will introduce themselves. So women first, Pooja, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Florian. Hi, guys. My name is Pooja. I'm the director at Australian's Talent. To give you a bit about my background, I have a bachelor's degree in engineering. I've completed my engineering from India. And didn't really enjoy the engineering space, so decided to move my stream, got into an MBA degree course, chose a 3-country program as I really wanted to explore, learn a bit along with the process. Completed my MBA degree in Dubai, got into an internship, and the same company offered me a full-time job. I happily accepted it, wanted to stay in Dubai, stayed there for about 2 years. That's where I really started my talent acquisition or talent space, where I really got in and really enjoyed being where I was. And then in 2018, got married, moved down to Australia. And as everyone says, it's a lucky country. It was definitely lucky for me because I found my first job in Australia within just a month in the talent acquisition space. And since then, I've been in here. I'm working with Australians for about 2 years now. Really enjoy every part of it because every day is a new day, and I'm not even kidding here. It's literally every day an amazing new day. I think that is what really keeps me going. I enjoy every bit of it. And yeah, that's me. That's a bit about me. Maybe in the other slides, Leo would talk a bit more about Australian's Talent, what we do, maybe even a link to kind of show the open positions we have. But this is me, and this is all about me.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Yeah, maybe just it's important to mention that you and Leo work in the same company.
Yes, we do.
Australians. Yes. Okay.
The founder.
Great. Thanks, Pooja.
Thank you.
I think the next speaker to introduce is Pierre-Yves. Pierre-Yves.
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Florian. So my name is Pierre-Yves. Just Pierre will be enough for to make it shorter for this call.
Okay.
I'm a manager at EY. I arrived in Australia about 5 years ago, and there's been a likewise a rich experience so far. I arrived as a working holiday holder, and now I'm on my way to become citizen. So definitely like lots of opportunities. You will also need to have a bit of luck as well to take it this far. But yeah, otherwise, it's a really great adventure to immigrate to Australia. And I joined consulting actually 3 years and a half. So I joined here in Australia. So make a kind of a shift in my career. And I could see there is quite a difference between the industry and the consulting world, which is always interesting to witness. But yeah, that's about me in a nutshell. I think we can probably hand over to Leo and close the loop to Australians again. You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Pierre-Yves.
Cool. Thanks.
Leo, the floor is yours.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone from Sydney. So I'm a graduate from EMLYON in 2003. And I first came to Australia actually as a MBA exchange student. Thanks to EMLYON, I spent 7 months in Melbourne in 2002-2003. And that's where I kind of discovered Australia, fell in love with Australia. So a big thanks to EMLYON for that. I came back in 2007, and basically I didn't move for the last 15 years, living in Sydney, really enjoying the lifestyle, the culture, like all the open-mindedness of the Australian people, and I think we'll talk about that a bit later on. 2010, I created the Australians, basically with the view to help a number of professionals around the world to come to continue or start their career or to do internship in Australia. We've a team of 10 people distributed between France, Hong Kong, and Australia. We work mainly with startup, high growth companies, as well as pretty much SMEs, small medium business, looking to hire international talents if they are in Australia, or looking to expand to Europe or from Europe to Australia. So we've got a bit of a mix of what we call our talent solution, so where Pooja works and has recently become a director of the business. We have our access solution, and we've got our network solution, so to help companies to find potential clients or investors if they are startup. So we've put here on the slide australianstalent.com, which is our main website. So if you are looking for opportunities in Australia, we have probably at the moment close to 15 or 20 openings, in majority permanent job offers, but also internship. We've recruited a number of interns from EMLYON or various business or engineering school in France for us and for our clients. So yeah, if you're considering a move to Australia, I would really invite you to check out this website, australianstalent.com.
Great, thank you very much, Leo. So we are now going to go to the first part of this webinar. So the first part is dedicated to the overview or the global picture of the employment situation, the industries, and the employment trends in Australia. So this first part is going to be presented by Leo.
So thanks. So I'll try to, we can expand. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. So, if there are things you want to talk about specific industry, we can be a bit more specific. Here we try to really kind of give you a bit of a big picture of the Australian economy, whether that's, from an employment standpoint or, kind of key industries. So one of the things to know is, that's one of the most dynamic economy in the world, for developed countries with over 30 years of economic growth in a row. So it's one of the record actually in the world. The population is now just over 26 million inhabitants on the size of, a continent that is probably bigger than Europe. So imagine, that's often seen as an El Dorado. So small population on a continent, and really one of the key growth indicator of the country is the growth of the population, and it's set to grow by 23% in, I think it's actually 15 years, not in just 5 years. It's a very digital friendly market. So I think on average, we've got over 3 connected device per inhabitant, smartwatch, iPad, computer. So it's that make a very, very digital market. When I go back to France, I feel like almost kind of going back in time. You need to, above a certain amount, you can't pay with a card, or you can't pay, without putting your code and all this. It's very, more, I would say, cashless society and very international population. So that's something, when you are not born in Australia, it's actually, pretty comforting to see, so many accents, so many, different color of face and origins. So basically, it's a country that has been built by immigration and immigration waves over the last 200 years. So it's basically a very, very cosmopolitan country. I also put, some key indicator in terms of, to give you an idea of both the salary, but also maybe the cost of life. If you come without a job and, you need to come with your own savings. So yeah, probably minimum salary is around 500 euros a week. We often think about, week, we pay our rent on a weekly basis. And so week is kind of often the norm when you think about, casual jobs. A number of hours of a normal working week is 38 hours, and the average salary at the moment it's probably close to, let's say, 5,000 euros a month. In terms of what's happening with the economy, the top 5 industries are mining, finance and insurance, technology, healthcare, construction. It has changed a bit over the last few years, because education was actually one of the key pillars of the economy. And over the last 2 years, without the possibility for international students to come and study in Australia, it has really taken a hint. And given the current situation in China, we're not sure when the education sector is gonna really recover. But saying that, important to see that technology is actually one of the fastest growing industry in Australia. I've put here a few names of Australian software companies, or kind of scale-ups or unicorn, as we call them. Atlassian, Canva, Safety Culture, Airwallex, Afterpay, Culture Amp, are some, or Zipco are some of the most famous companies. And the technology sector, is set to keep on growing very, very fast, and has grew very, very fast, has been accelerated through the COVID situation with remote working, obviously. So something we also wanted to convey is there has never, if you're looking to either relocate to Australia or come for an internship or work experience in Australia, it has never actually been a best time. One, because there is actually a lot of job in the country, and not only because the unemployment rate is pretty low, it's always kind of been low all over my 15 years in Australia, but it's really kind of record low now, with reaching 4% across the whole country. In New South Wales, where the 3 of us live, is actually 3.7%, a state. And the fact that the international borders were closed for the last 2 years really kind of increased the lack of talent in the country. A big watch out is you need to understand there is a selective immigration system. I think, you know, in some of our tips, we'll be talking a lot about the working holiday visa, which for, you know, most citizens of European Union is available until 35-year-old. If you have not used it already, if you are more older and experienced, there are, you know, other visa scheme, whether you try to get an independent pass or you are sponsored by a company. So a company basically give you the right to work in Australia, come and work in Australia. So that's in a nutshell the summary. You know, obviously, you know, you need to understand few of the you know, the reality in Australia, but it's mainly when you come to Australia that you realize you know, whether it's the right country for you. But from a professional perspective, it's really you know, full of opportunities at the moment.
Thank you, Leo. That's very good news for our audience, I think, who are people interested to move or travel to Australia. So thank you very much for sharing this overview. Before we switch to part 2, which is dedicated to the cultural specificities, I would like to ask our audiences if anyone has any questions. Feel free to open your microphone and ask your questions directly to our speakers. So we have a question in the chats from Thierry. Thank you, Thierry. So
yes.
Do you want to talk directly? Yeah.
Yes, please.
No problem.
Leo mentioned that the healthcare industry is working fine. It's different from the pharmaceutical industry, isn't it? In your
when we mention healthcare, we would think about, for example, aged care, maison de retraite, if you want.
Yes,
we can think about medical practice. So obviously with COVID, imagine with COVID, there has been, you know, obviously a boom in this. That said, so pharmaceutical, it's pretty large sector, but there are no, as far as I know, there are no very strong incumbent or leader, Australian leader. So the companies you see here, you know, GlaxoSmith or, you know, Sanofi, you know, are kind of international companies coming to, or Pfizer, international companies coming to Australia.
But they have no industrial sites, production sites, manufacturing sites.
Not a lot.
Okay.
Small, like compared with, so it's mainly, and the manufacturing sector in Australia, maybe it's, you know, it's actually very tiny. It's really, you know, how do we say, matière première, you know, like kind of raw material production, as well as service industry. You know, the famous motto is designed in Australia, made in China. So a lot of the manufacturing or the industrial revolution never really took place in Australia. Being an island, you know, always had a strong tie to, you know, to China, you know, Asian, to do the production of the finished good in Australia.
Okay, thank you, Leo.
You're welcome.
Has anyone got any question? Kilian, would you like to ask your question directly?
Yes, so I'm a first year global BBA student, and I'm already do a trip in Perth, and I would like to do my second year's internship in Australia. So I would like to ask what is like to do an internship in Australia.
Do you mean, so what would be an internship? How it is to do an internship?
In Australia, it is easy to find an internship in Australia. It is easy to find accommodation. Are they paid? I don't know. Some question like that.
General questions. Okay. Leo, Pooja, Pierre-Yves, would you like to answer?
I think that's probably a Leo question as our recruitment expert. happy
I mean,
to chip in.
we wrote a book about it, so I love the topic. I can talk about it for hours. You know, Pooja, obviously, she interviewed a few. I mean, recently, I mean, maybe I can talk about the last intern we recruited for actually a French company called Magimix. We actually recruited a Ukrainian student. We arrived in the country not even 2 months ago. She arrived after 1 week. You know, she had this internship, you know, doing the interviews, and she was really doing the interviews. You know, she found an accommodation very quickly, and now she's doing her internship 5 days a week. And if everything goes well, she'll be hired full-time by Magimix in like a sales and marketing coordinator position. So yeah, and we've helped like 100 of international students or French students. So I would say it's a beautiful experience. You need to be a bit prepared to secure the internship. It's at the other side of the world. So, you know, 2 years ago, we actually had to help a number of interns to leave the country and go back to, you know, France and their school and their parents, you know, in a difficult situation. Hopefully it will never happen again. But you need to know it's obviously a bit of a distance. You need to have some savings as well, so you're not stressing. In the past, we had many interns, you know, doing small jobs on the side if the whole allowance was not enough to help them, you know, pay for their accommodation and their food. I know that, you know, if you are an EMLYON student, there used to be actually grants, bourse, called Explorasup, or from the region actually. That was great, you know, to help the students to be able to do this type of work experience. So, you know, and Kylian, we can actually, I'll find you a link for a guide in French about, you know, doing an internship in Australia. I'll send it in on the Zoom link if you want to read more.
Okay, thank you.
On a side note, if I may chip in, Kylian, I understand you already went in Perth, so I don't know if you already used your working holiday visa, but obviously, like one of the key changes you have to keep in mind is how you can secure your working rights. So if you haven't used it, like the working holiday is a very easy way to do it. Otherwise, you may need to get your future, you know, internship employer to help you work.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I have a working holiday visa, but there is a COVID, so my visa, and now I start the EMLYON business school courses, so I stopped my my working holiday visa.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, just you know, I think the point is like Australia is not the EU, so it's never as easy as just like, you know, get your backpack and change country. Yeah, as Leo alluded to, you need a bit more prep probably on
yes.
the side.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for replying to Kylian. I think we have Estelle who would like to ask a question.
Living in Australia, if we could maybe compare Sydney to a city in France, it could be...
Estelle, sorry to interrupt. Yeah. We can't hear you very well. Could you maybe, the sound is...
It's okay?
Yes, it's much better. Great, thank you.
Yes, I have a question about the cost of living in Australia. I would like to know if we compare maybe Sydney to a city in France, if it could be like Paris or Lyon, just to know the salary, what could be a good salary to live well in Australia.
You're talking about job, not internship, right?
Yeah, job, yes,
okay.
Permanent job.
It's a vast question. I would say the cost of life is closer to Paris than Lyon. I mean, that said, I was very surprised. I came to Lyon and Paris in November, December. I was very surprised to pay a cafe latte €4, where, you know, when we pay $4 here, we find it quite expensive. but yeah, I would say, in terms of cost of life is closer to Paris than in terms of, good salary, I would say, the salary here are kind of on surface always a bit better, in the sense that, there is no charge social, charge patronal. So basically, when you're given a salary, that's the salary you're going to be kind of taxed on. That said, a number of things that are free in France, you need to pay here, potentially education or, activities for you, your children, if you have children, and things like this. So I don't know, what is a good salary? All I can say is that, we've seen like a salary increase, and on average, in Australia, the salary are above the French salary. So that's what I can say, and then we can have a more specific discussion about your case separately.
Yeah, probably on the back of that, I reckon the biggest cost you need to cater for will be your rent. I think, yeah, as Leo just said, like I think that the cost of living on a day-to-day, like paying for your transport, paying for groceries and stuff, will be comparable to what you'd pay in Paris. However, I think that the last time I checked was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, but the average rent in Sydney was 60 or 70% higher than what it was in Paris. So I think, as a rule of thumb, you can probably expect to pay between $300 a week if you just have a shared room if you just have a private room in a shared flat, and $600 a week if you have a place on your own. Yeah, just as a baseline.
So to help you, it's between 200 and 400 euros a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So before we switch to part 2, we'll take a last question. I think Lawson has raised her hand. Lawson, do you want to open your microphone?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Maeva.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, my question. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. My question, it was because I already made the working holiday visa 2 years ago, and I wanted to know what kind of visa we can have when we are graduates, like a new graduate, and we want to start like a work life. What kind of visa we can have when we already got a working holiday visa?
So, I mean, realistically, I mean, 3 options. You can always come on obviously on a tourist visa, which doesn't enable you to work, but you can look for a job, make contacts, things like this. I would say, your best bet if you are in a hurry and you want to come to Australia would probably be a student visa. Kind of resuming some studies here, and that gives you, at the moment with a student visa, you can work full-time. Not in a normal pre-pandemic state, you would be able to work part-time, and then when you're here, you can obviously work and get more experience. Another lead for you would be to look for a VIE, and at the moment this is resuming again, so a lot of organizations, let's say BNP Paribas, like all the large companies, are looking to get some new VIE in the country, or finally that would be for you to probably gain a bit more experience and then come on a sponsored visa or applied for permanent residency offshore. But you look, if you just did your working visa, looks like you may not have enough work experience to kind of qualify at this stage. So typically you need kind of 5 years work experience in a job that is on demand to qualify for a sponsor visa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are now going to switch to the second part of this webinar. So the second part is dedicated to the cultural specificities of a job interview in Australia. So the first speaker for this second part is Pooja. So Pooja is going to share her views of the cultural specificities.
Hi, probably this is where I'll take the most of my time because this is my area of expertise. But yeah, so let's start off with the resume. So I've often seen people having a profile picture on their resume, which is not really recommended here in Australia. Rather put in a link to your LinkedIn profile. So people would actively go click on your LinkedIn profile, want to see an updated version of your LinkedIn profile, right from your education to your internship experience or your project experience, whatever it is. It's always good to keep your LinkedIn profile updated. Always make it a point to mention your awards or achievements that you have had in your work, your projects, your uni. You always find it very small. Maybe you won a competition in your university, maybe you won a project. Could be anything. You kind of feel it's a small thing, but really makes a difference when you're kind of applying for a job or for an internship, especially. Having a section on awards and achievements is key. And especially a section for skills as well. So people kind of really try and avoid the skill section, but in Australia, it's quite a mandatory section. One reason being there's a lot of platforms that kind of takes off your resume across from the pool of applications if you have not mentioned some keywords on your resume. Could be hard skills, could be soft skills, communication, Microsoft Excel, could be anything, but mentioning a section on skills is quite important on your resume. Moving to interview in Australia, always be on time. I've seen people being really late for interviews. Even if it's a minute late, it's not really a good impression that you want to leave with the employer. You want to be on time, even if you're before time is always good because by then you kind of have some time to relax. Drink a glass of water, just breathe and kind of take some time to rest. And yeah, and then while you're in the interview, always try and be honest, transparent, don't fake it. I don't really go along with fake it until you make it. I really don't believe in that. And nor does the companies here really want it. They always want you guys to kind of be transparent because that's where they kind of can start off. So you kind of say you don't know something, so they know what to kind of expect if they're hiring you and how can they kind of draft or kind of scope their training process to kind of get you on board and get you going in the position. Always carry a pen and a notebook when you're going for an interview or anywhere, even if you're just going to meet anyone, a pen and a notebook is always good to kind of make notes. Just to show that you kind of really value what they're saying. Even if you're asking a question and they respond to your question, you want to make sure you want to write that down. It's not something that you just ask because you just had to ask. You really value what you asked and really value the answers that you've got. So always make it a point to make some notes. Do as much research as possible at your end when you're going for an interview. It could be for an internship, it could be for a job. Try and do as much research as possible. We are in this era where we have all information available online. So even if there is a financial statement of this company online, just go through it. Just understand as much as possible so you have all your questions ready, which also shows the company that you're really keen to kind of join the company because you kind of have spent some time to understand the company, understand what the project is or what the job description is and things like that. Here, usually we kind of dress up as formal or smart casuals is how you kind of go for an interview. Not in a ripped jeans or a t-shirt. That's not really recommended for an interview. At times, people kind of find this really, really basic, but trust me, I have seen people who have really gone in a ripped jeans and t-shirts for an interview. So I always make it a point to mention. Interviews here, I wouldn't say these days, but in Australia, it's always been a bit of a long process. Most of the companies kind of have at least 2 to 3 rounds of interviews, which at times can take some time because they're probably interviewing 5, 6 candidates for one position. And that could take a bit of a time. So the first interview could be a phone call where they're screening the candidates to see your availability, your visa status, part-time, full-time, your expectations in terms of salary and stuff. So that could be a screening phone call that you could receive. Once you clear that, then you might have a video interview with the hiring manager or the reporting manager. And if that goes well, then you might have a business case to work on. Usually a business case is a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that you would be asked to prepare, where you could put in the points, probably your strategy for the position, or what do you think, why do you think you're a good fit for the position. It could involve anything. For the business case, it could be around anything. And usually companies make it a point to do a background check, police check, or reference checks. That's quite common here in Australia to do these kind of checks before you getting on to the company or starting to work with them. That's me.
Thank you, Pooja. Now, Pierre-Yves is going to share his vision of the cultural specificities in Australia as a French expatriate.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so I'll probably just take it in the order. I reckon there are probably a couple of cultural elements that struck me when I first arrived. Usually in France, we tend to be very formal, and we use like, yeah, Mr. This, Mrs. That. Australia is more like, it's a bit more casual in the first contact. So it means the norm would be to use people's first name. So if I'm to meet Pooja for an interview, I'd probably say, hi, Pooja, and it wouldn't be like, perceived, speaking under your control, Pooja, right? But it will not be perceived as something like rude or too familiar. It's more like the norm. It would be also quite well perceived to start by a polite chit chat of like about 5 minutes for at the start of your conversation. Could be about the weather, could be about your weekend, could be just asking like a kind of bonding question to your interviewer. It will feel more natural and more at ease, and as opposed to if you just jump straight in your resume or in your presentation. It's usually a good way to just like let's say score 1 extra point in your interview. And also Australians tend to have to pay great attention to their work-life balance, which means 2 things. The first thing is then when at work, if you always stay late, you might not be perceived as something that works for as someone that's doing always the extra mile, but you may also be perceived as someone who's struggling to cope with that job. So could be a mixed signal. In the context of an interview, that means don't forget to thank people for their time and thank them for the just agreeing to meet you and like squeezing this half an hour in their day. Assuming that they're all very busy, obviously. As Pooja already touched on, good resume will be key. By a good resume, I mean like 2 pages, not more. If you're just a graduate and like starting your career, you can boil it down to 1 page. Start with your experience and rank it newest to oldest. Which means, like, I feel sometimes when you speak to like traditional French people, they could be 50 and still introduce themselves by starting by stating their uni, like, hey, I'm 50, let's say I went to Polytech Paris or something. It wouldn't fly well in Australia. You'll probably refer to your most recent experience and work your way backwards until you've studied eventually. Again, having some nice achievement to show is always nice. If you can squeeze in some metrics. I don't know if you had any previous experience, you were working in sales, for instance, you say, yeah, I just increased my sales target by like +5%. Boom, that's an easy one to score and always make a good impression. Last one, verbal communication to be on point as well. So be concise, be specific, avoid broad statements. If you if you have to conduct what we call a difficult conversation, meaning like showing that you disagree with someone, always try to be like very considerate. There is a trait of the Australian culture that we is sometimes referred to as conflict avoidance, which means if you disagree, it should be way less frontal that you will do in France, basically. I think in the French culture, we have this notion of healthy conflict, where, you know, like if you openly disagree, then you can together work towards a better solution. It also works in Australia, but you have to be very, very mild in the way you phrase your discontent. And that links to the last point on this page. Whenever you speak, try to do it with a soft tone, ensure that you actually have, you know, like you're always in a positive mood. It can be happy or it can be calm, but it has to be more positive, I guess. And having a loud voice always help. Australians, you know, both men and women are usually way louder than your French colleague could be, I reckon. For instance, you'll see it in the office, but you also see it like in restaurants or in bars. The first time I walked in an Australian bar, I couldn't hear anything. I was just like blown away by the sound, like just people having a chat with their friends. But yeah, they're pretty loud. I think that wraps it up for me. So unless you have any questions, we can probably hand over to Leo. I think it's over to you next. Love sandwich. Okay. So love sandwich. That's a good question. I didn't explain this one.
Pierre, yes.
So love sandwich is actually you could say a technique where, in order to let your, let's say, comments or negative remark land a bit better, you put a compliment before and after. For instance, yeah, I really like your shirt. Maybe it's not the right fit for you, but you know, I can see it's very good quality. You know, this kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think I understand. Yes. So you start by a positive remark. You make your comment or point to be developed, and then you end again with a positive point.
Yes, that's correct. That's why it's a sandwich, because you have like compliment, comment, okay, compliment again.
Thank you. Thanks, Pierre.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Pierre-Yves, for these very detailed tips. Leo, your turn to share the cultural specificities in Australia.
Yes. So yeah, I really agree with. I mean, French, we can be seen as very direct and arrogant all around the world, and in Australia as well. So really remember, you know, some of the tips from Pierre-Yves, you know, and you know, I'd say, you know, my first thing is also about, you know, making the best first impression possible. Because if you don't, then there may not be a chance to go to a second round of interview or continue a process. You know, and as Pooja mentioned, you know, it's often whether you interview online, you know, from France or outside of Australia, or in Australia, where we actually do most of our interviews still online. You will have several touch points with the company before, you know, signing an agreement, and actually then even being hired, and, you know, then potentially meeting physically with your colleagues. And for us as you know, connectors, not just recruiters, but really connectors, the worst outcome is actually not for someone to miss a job, but is actually to get a job and then not perform well, and actually you know, not go through their probation period they say in French. So yeah, always remember, I would say, you know, to prepare your interviews. know who you are meeting in Australia. And we touched on LinkedIn a little bit, but LinkedIn, the social network, is very, very key. Pretty much 80% of the people in Australia, I would say, rule of thumb, 80% of the white collar in Australia will be on LinkedIn. Whether they use it daily or not, it's another story, but they will have a LinkedIn profile. You can just Google them, Google who you are meeting, understand who they are, even better if you understand who they are also outside of work, so you can, during the chit chat, say, hey, I've seen we've got mutual connection, interesting, you studied there, or I've seen you are a lifesaver in this club in Bondi, and or you play football, or me too, interesting, did you see the last game, or whatever, create a bond during this chit chat phase. Also, by being on time or being early, you will then be able to test the Zoom, or some of our clients are using WebEx, or are using Teams, are using Google Meet, some of the video tools that you may not be familiar with. As we mentioned, you want to have a professional LinkedIn profile with a picture, as up to date as possible, with recommendation, with a number of skills that you can see, so that when people prepare for your interview, they can also see the best version of you. Something also, you really want to have a professional voicemail. As student, maybe you think it's funny to make a joke, or leave a voicemail, messagerie vocale, something funny. If I'm a recruiter and I'm calling and you're not answering, and I'm getting a funny voicemail, I may not call you back, and may not leave a voicemail and say, this guy is not really, or this guy or this girl is not really serious. And also, what you want to have is also an email signature. So when you send an email, there is the link to your LinkedIn profile, there is your phone number, and there is if you are a student, I don't know, that you are studying at EMLYON, and whatever you are mastering on, or the year you are studying in. So something else, Pierre-Yves touched on, is around your presentation. So, after that chit chat, I'll say, hey, Florian, tell me more about you. And the tell me more about you, what I'm expecting here is like a 30-second or 1-minute presentation of you in the context of that interview. Okay. So the fact that you were born in Besançon in whatever year, and then you went to this school, and then you did horse riding, and then you decided to actually study in EMLYON, and then do this and do that, like your whole biography. it's not the point. It's like, okay, I'm Leo, I've been for 15 years in Australia, I've got a background in management consulting. Today I'm really excited to be here because I'm at this phase of my life where I want a new challenge, and I've heard great things about your company and all this. Okay, so it's like a short 1-minute presentation. The last thing we want as recruiter is really, someone that's gonna then talk for 20 minutes and talk about the whole life, and it's really not interactive and not to the point. And then we look at each other and say, hey, but what did he mean? Why he said all that? He talked about, I don't know, all these experience in marketing, where today we are recruiting for a sales position or developer position. So yeah, same thing, take notes during the interview. A few reasons for that. One, it's always a good impression to send a thank you note, and if there were things that you learned during the interview about the company, that you can put something a bit more specific than saying, hey, Florian, thank you for making the time. What are the next steps? When should I expect an answer, and all this? Actually, giving something back and saying, hey, really appreciate, Florian, today I learned something amazing thanks to you. And actually I did some more research. Here's a link if you want to know more. And also for you, if you're not successful in this interview, then you can go back to your notes and say, hey, actually, when he asked me that question, this is what I answered, and maybe next time I should talk about another experience. Okay. So something else we touched on is really be genuine. No one is perfect. Don't tell, yes, I'm an expert in this. The next interview round may actually be a technical case where you say, okay, you told us you're an expert on Excel. okay, can you build a macro to solve this, this problem? And you have 1 hour and you left in a room. And all you can do is cry if you don't know how to build a macro in Excel. So never lie. Don't oversell yourself. In Australia, that would come across as arrogant. What is 23 years old? He only has 1 year of experience, and he tells us he can do all this already. It's not gonna work. And as mentioned, you may perform during the interview process, but then during your first month with the company, you may fail. One of the kind of model I often recommend to answer a specific question is to use the STAR model. So it's an acronym standing for situation, task, action, result. So that could be, hey, Florian, tell me about a time where you had to face a very difficult situation, and how do you had to overcome conflict situation, and how do you support conflict? How do you react with conflict? So you say, hey, that's the situation I was in. I was working at EMLYON at that time. I was asked to organize a webinar about employability. This is what I did, and this is how I overcame. So it's a nice framework you can use for a number of questions, and you can actually prepare your frequently asked question using this, and that's going to be much better if you only talk about the result or you don't give the context to this situation you were facing. And then finally, I think we touched on that, but something in Australia, there are some rounds that can be actually the first round often, or the final round. During your recruitment process, we'd say, hey, let's catch up for a coffee. Okay. So, and in France, if you catch up with a coffee and you're recommended by someone, you may say things, you may come as really too genuine, or, super friendly, or this guy is super cool, he's inviting me for a coffee. I can talk about, a lot of things, I can, say, let's say, bad things, what I'm looking to change jobs, or, oh, I came to Australia because France was awful. There was all these problems in France, and, I didn't want to pay tax anymore or whatever. And so I'm so happy. That's not the point. Actually, this coffee catch-up is actually an informal interview. So you still need to behave professionally. You still need to come, even if it's more relaxed than with a suit, you still need to come, dressed up accordingly, kind of smart casual. And really, the objective of this round is really to assess the cultural fit. Years ago, over 10 years ago, I applied for I was invited for a coffee by one of my clients then for the Commonwealth Bank. And actually the guy, we had a good discussion. I knew the guy before, and one of the things he told me after is, hey, one of the questions I had to fill in, so he had to fill in literally an evaluation matrix, like, would I be happy to go for a beer with Leo? Okay. Because ultimately, when you are, working in a team, you may have some after drink and things like this. And it's something, you want, whether that's a coffee, a beer, going for a karaoke, if that, kind of rock your boat, is, would I bond with this person? Would I be happy to spend, to work very late just next to this person if, we have to achieve something? So remember the coffee catch-up or the informal interview, it's not just a catch-up. It's also basically a way to see if you could work with the company and more to assess, kind of the cultural fit.
Thank you, Leo. Very useful. So we have a question in the chat from Rishab. I don't know, Rishab, if you hear us, would you be able to ask your question through the microphone?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Rishab.
So, very good afternoon. And so it's quite a insightful question actually for me. It's what factors is like the average salary based on like when they hire in Australia, and just like I said, how are the school rankings, experience, and international, if the profile is international, perceived by the Australian human resources, and how important do they see those things as? And just if you could answer this for the finance industry, that would be great. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, you want to go? You go first.
No, you go, Pierre or Pooja. Yeah, happy for you to speak.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Rashad. I probably just a quick point regarding your point about like the how recruiters will scan your resume basically. One key thing to remember is like Australia is quite far away, so most recruiters will not know the difference between EMLYON and like any other university in France. They'll have like a slightly different scheme in mind for how they read studies. So for the finance sector, well, it's you can do two things. The first thing is like on your resume you can really outline like the ranking of the school, for instance. I think we have like some ranking with the finance in Shanghai or something that will rank EMLYON internationally. So that's always a good number to show. The second thing you can do is if you have any way to take what they call like the CPA or the chartered accountant degree on the side, that's a good international standard in the finance side world. Sorry. So I don't know if it's relevant in your specific case because I'm no finance expert, but I had a few friends who play this card to land their jobs. Yeah, Leo, back to you.
Pooja, you want to explain how the salary are calculated, or
Yeah, if I want to just add to that, Rishabh, would be average salary is completely depending on the kind of experience you're bringing in. And usually the local experience also matters a lot when you're applying for a job. And when you're talking about finance, I'm sure it really plays an important role because could be accounting, payroll. Australia is a bit different compared to other countries. So having local experience would definitely matter a lot. And hence the salary would also kind of rely on your local experience. Again, as Perry said, I don't really think the kind of school or the degree that you're coming from would really matter, because while we're hiring, we're really not focusing on the university or the ranking of the university. Obviously, there are times when they say, we want someone with an engineering background or a technical background. So we just see if that person has a degree in marketing or has a degree in engineering. But that is all. We're really not worried or kind of going after looking at the kind of ranking of the university. But yes, if you are from one of the top universities in France, India, anywhere from the world, it's always good, as Perry said, kind of mention the ranking on your resume. So that kind of is highlighted on your resume. And I think I've I think that is all I could add. Is there?
Yeah, but so what I would just add, Rishabh, is before applying for a job, two things. So either you see on the job advertising the salary range this company is offering. So they could say it's between $60,000 and $80,000 per annum based on experience. Okay, so they could give you a range like this. If not, then you need to be ready to answer this question at the first call. Okay, so let's say you apply or you get an introduction and they would say through the first call or the first email they're gonna send you, say, hey, Rishabh, okay, tell us more about your degree, are you graduated, your visa condition, for example, and by the way, what are your financial expectations? Okay, so you need to be able to answer what could be your financial expectation for this specific role. And so either it's already advertised, either you need to put forward, and that's pretty much when we decide whether we'll organize the first round of interview, with you. Because if you tell us, a crazy amount, then, obviously you're not going to fit in the budget. If you give us an amount that is too low, that could be fine. But at the same time, we may say, hey, maybe it's not the right experience. If he can't already demonstrate, he's worth this much on the market. So I would, encourage you to actually look on Indeed, Seek, even LinkedIn, and even Google, salary benchmark for whatever position, whatever sector. And you would find kind of benchmark report from Michael Page, Hayes, some of the biggest company, or even LinkedIn. They do salary surveys that they publish regularly for a specific sector, for specific job title. So that would give you an indication, because even in Sydney, for the same position in Sydney or in Perth or in kind of regional Australia, there could be a huge difference in terms of salary.
Thanks to have that. There are, considering there are quite a few variables in this point. And just one more thing, what are the taxes like in case of like a 6-month internship? Will I end up paying more taxes because I'll be there just for 6 months, or how is that situation like?
So the tax, so there is same thing. If you Google tax calculator or tax simulation, so typically there are 2 types of internship. There are unpaid internship, which doesn't mean you work, your experience is paid 0. Okay, you receive an allowance, in which case there is no tax, or paid internship, which means you are paid at the minimum salary, in which case you declare your salary. And in Australia, we have pay as you go system, prélèvement à la source. So your tax would be deducted. Okay, so it will depend on your visa type. So I'm not sure, if you would qualify as a working holiday visa, in which case you pay 15% tax, from the first dollar you earn and you declare. And then in Australia, it's kind of obviously the more you earn, the more kind of tax you pay. On average, we generally pay a bit less tax in Australia. The less you earn, it's kind of under what you would kind of pay in France. The more you earn, it's kind of start to be on par with the maximum tax rate being, I think, 47% in Australia. But same thing. So I can try to put some link around kind of tax calculator and maybe find you a salary benchmark for the finance sector. But yeah, I would kind of Google all this, to be honest.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Leo, Pooja, and Pierre for answering to Rishab's question. So we are now going to move on to the third part of our webinar, which will be the final part. This part is dedicated to our speakers' top 3 best advice. Pooja, I think you are first on this part.
Thank you. Yeah, I think most of the points have already been covered. As Leo said, building connections, contacts is a key thing in Australia. In fact, I got my first job was through a referral alumni meet that I was in, and I kind of spoke to one of my seniors, and that's how even I landed up with my first job. So building connections, it's not easy to kind of have that small conversations when you're kind of meeting a new person, but strike a conversation, go out of your box, meet people. There are meetups here. Go look for the meetups that you would be interested in. Try and be a part of it. Build connections on LinkedIn. When you apply for a job, try connecting to someone from that company so you could kind of follow up if that's needed, or just get in touch with someone in there just to see how the status of the company is, or just telling them, look, I'm interested, I've applied for a job, whatever it is, could be anything, but it would be really good if you could kind of connect with people on LinkedIn while you're kind of applying for jobs or internships. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned this, kind of putting up your skills, your job responsibilities on your resume, award section, achievement sections are all quite key. And yeah, could be prepared for an interview anytime. When you're starting to kind of apply for jobs or internships, always keep your phone ready. You could get a call anytime. So always be prepared. I mean, try and pick up a call and say, hi, this is Pooja here. So kind of have a formal way of picking up, answering your calls. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in the last, it's a business case presentations that you have. So try and have, improve on your PowerPoint presentation skills or kind of communication skills if it's a management role. So kind of be prepared while you are applying for jobs, even before you start getting calls. While you're starting to apply for jobs or internships, start preparing for it even before you get those calls or those before you step into those interview process. That would be my advice.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Very valuable advice. Pierre-Yves, what would be your top 3 best advice?
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, like we kind of touched on already, building your network will be super important. If you were to hop off a plane in Australia tomorrow, I think one of the key things to do almost from day one would be to start looking for people you might engage with in the industry that you'd like to work in, and also find some recruiters. So you conveniently have a few names in front of you. So feel free to write them down and use them. Sorry, it's a bit late here. My English is going away. That would be my 2 tips on the network. The second big point would be to gain a sound understanding of the market you're trying to enter. So identify the key companies, try to follow them. They might not be hiring at the exact time that you're looking, but maybe 2 months down the line they will have a cycle with new position opening. And that timing is always key. So keep an eye on the companies that you're interested in. Browse the job ads on LinkedIn to identify them. On LinkedIn or other sites, you can find 2 kind of employers. This way you can find direct employers, so the companies that are directly looking to fill in some positions, or again you can find some job ads that are posted by recruiting agencies that will act as the middleman between your future employer and yourself. And regardless of whether you land the job or land at least an interview with your first attempt, it's always a good idea to keep in touch with the recruiters that you manage to talk to. Third point, come prepared, have a plan. I think that cycle back to a few points that we raised in answering Rishab's question. So be clear on what kind of job you can you have a chance to secure. Be clear on the salary band and the expectation that you can have for this job. So when the question is asked, like, what are your expectations, you can be more or less on the mark. Having your working rights will be, I think 9 times out of 10 will be a pass or fail criteria. So if you have working rights in Australia, you'll pass. If you don't, recruiters will probably move on to the next candidate, unfortunately. So that is a really key point to address. We already touched on this point before, as Leo mentioned. So you can come either as a working holiday visa worker, or as a student, or as a tourist and try to get a sponsor. That's probably the holy grail, but it's you have to work hard to get it. I think a good advice on the visa side would be to try to find an immigration agent. Australia relies on immigration agents to kind of screen people whom they will let in. And that's quite a regulated market. So you're unlikely to get completely scammed, hopefully. So that would be a good tip to keep in mind. And the very last bullet point on the slide would be, when you come with a plan, try to have a few, good reason why you would be a good candidate. And that would mean why they should hire you, as opposed to someone else who might have a bit more local experience. So I think a key thing to keep in mind is if you come here as a foreigner, you'll probably start with a handicap compared to someone who will be born and bred in Australia. So it's always a good idea to have, an extra thing to offer. Maybe you'll probably have to give a little bit more to gain a little bit more experience to get the same job, or to have some extra achievement to show. But it's always good to have this kind of question already prepared at the back of your mind.
Thank you, Pierre-Yves. Thank you very much, Pierre-Yves. And Leo, for the last slide, and then we can move on to the final part of the Q&A session. So what would be your top 3 best advice, Leo?
Okay, so I'll start with a big disclaimer. I forgot to mention that with Australians for the first 6 years of Australians, so 2010, 2016, I've done coaching session, group session, or individual coaching session. So it was very difficult for me to kind of condense all my tips in one slide. But the model I use when I coach someone is it's a model called GROW: goals, realization, options, and what's next, or wrap up of a session. To build on, and you can apply that whether you want to come to Australia, whether you want to find a new job in France, and all this. Okay, so what are your goals? Okay, you need a plan. If you just watch a documentary about Australia, or this webinar, and then you're okay, yeah, Australia is nice. Okay, I'm gonna apply for a job in Australia. It's not a goal. Okay, so you need to be clear on your short-term goal. I need to do a 6 months internship overseas. If I'm a student, long-term goal can be, I'm interested about living in an English-speaking country, with nice quality of life, explore the world and all this. But really, I would invite you to challenge yourself on the why, okay, and then ask why, and then why again, okay? Because if you clarify this, then if you convince yourself, then you're very more likely to convince, recruiters, your next employer, your partner, your family, why are you going at the other side of the world? That's a question I had to answer a few times to my family, a few times actually, because I came twice and then I stayed. And, similar to Pierre-Yves, and Pooja, I went into like really a marathon of, visa, changing jobs, various situations. I'm very happy overall. But, I would say you need to be kind of prepared and clear on your motivation. Formalizing your plan, it's okay, step 1, okay, I'll do my resume for the Australian market. Okay, you got a few tips today. You'll find more tips on your website, or Google Australian resume template, for example. But that would be one of the first step on your plan. For example, doing market research. We talked that a few times. If today you work for, let's say, Carrefour doesn't exist here. You need to understand who are the other retailers in Australia, and you need to be able to explain, what is Carrefour to an Australian who's never been to a Carrefour. Okay, you need to be obviously organized, document your progress. So you go back to your plan, say, hey, okay, I've done step 1, or step 2 is in progress. Okay, I've already spent, some time on LinkedIn connecting with various people on LinkedIn. I've reached through the alumni network. Actually, I have a cousin or someone told me they know someone in Australia. Okay, I'm gonna connect with them, ask them for advice or potentially referrals. If you clear that, they're working for a company that is on your target list, that is, that can have a job that you're looking for. If you can, at the moment, for example, we start having, or we restart as the borders have reopened, to have international candidates talking to us and saying, hey, I'm very interested about this job offer, can you help me find a job? There is obviously a big difference between a candidate that is already in Australia versus someone saying, hey, I'm still in my job in France. Actually, if you give me this job in Australia, I'll come, okay? Because in France, you will have like a 3 months notice period at least. You may have some other things to do. So, and no one is actually hiring someone now for, to start in 4, 5, 6 months time, okay? So if you can come during or at the beginning of your recruitment process, then it's would make a big difference, would show your motivation, will also help you to understand if that's the right country for you. And you'll be able to kind of meet people and literally start a job within 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, let's say. Okay, if you apply from overseas, obviously it's going to be a much longer process, and there is a bit of risk involved as well, because you may not get your visa on time, and then you lose this opportunity if you don't get your visa. So yeah, much better if you can already apply for working holiday visa, and and then apply or come on the ground, and yeah, apply while you're here. Okay, so I mean, I talked through most of those points here. The network, yeah, network is pretty key. I mean, all of you are alumni from a business school, or a student from a business school. I mean, you would know your net worth is your network. And yeah, as I mentioned, there is a fantastic tool called LinkedIn, the alumni platform. Great way to connect with people already in the country, or even you would be surprised, in the last 2 years there are actually a lot of French people, or any nationalities who actually left Australia to go back to their home country during the pandemic. So you could actually be surprised and speak with people in France that just came back to Australia, have networked there, have opportunities there. And as we mentioned, with Pooja, through the economic outlook, there is a lot of jobs available. Okay, literally, that's today we saw 3 clients today. That's all we've been talking about is, okay, 2 years ago we would have been able to find someone quickly, and now it's really what we call the candidate market, where a lot of our candidates, within a month we interview them for a position, they would land 2 or 3 job offers with an employment agreement within a month. Okay, so it's quite a fast and exciting environment if you're looking for a job in Australia. There are a lot of groups on social media, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, even Instagram handle that you can follow, newsletter that you can join, the like of Chamber of Commerce or industry group that you can join, as we mentioned, Seek or LinkedIn, that are sending a lot of information. Seek would be the equivalent of, let's say, Cadre Emploi in France, and other recruiters that would send salary benchmark, industry surveys as well. And one of the things I had to do actually when I came to Australia back in 2007 is be open to step down. So it doesn't mean you're not gonna be well paid, but actually not looking necessarily for a promotion. So when I came to Australia in 2007, in France, I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a supervisor, and then when I came, I kind of lost a grade, if you want. to get into the market. And I, today, like, I absolutely don't regret it. Originally, it was a bit painful saying, oh, I'm going to be a bit less senior and all this. But, if, you're not English native, if you never worked, in another country, you need to learn or relearn a number of things. And it's much easier if you don't have the pressure to be a boss and then managing a team and everyone is expecting you to know everything, and you're actually discovering everything, a little bit like a baby in a new environment, in a new home. So yeah, do yourself a favor and don't really or only look for, what could look like as a promotion in your career, and be open to kind of a lateral move, if we may say that, given we have the head on the other side. But that would be some of my my tips. But yeah, number one, really kind of think and grow. Be clear around why, and have a plan.
Thank you very much, Leo, for your valuable tips. I'm sure it will be useful to our audience today. I have a question. Is international experience something considered? Is it an advantage, or from what I heard from you today, it sounds like it can be seen as a disadvantage because you need to, as you said, relearn everything? Or is it like something that is valuable and considered by the companies?
I think it's a bit of both. I reckon it can be an advantage, but you need to back it up with local experience. If you have international experience only, that can slow you down a bit. But if you have, if you grow some form of expertise, like you've worked for like years in let's say finance in London or Paris, because we just talked about finance before. Come to Australia and work for another few years in the same sector in Australia. That would be seen probably as more as a richness on your profile, as opposed to if you have only foreign experience. Yeah, people would probably be a bit wondering, like, oh yeah, but maybe this person has no idea how we do things here. So yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Cool. Excellent.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to open your micro and ask directly to Leo, Pooja, and Pierre-Yves. This is the time.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Yes. While we're waiting, maybe I can mention that for students and alumni, if you have not done so, you can register to the Australian group on the alumni platform. So on the community or community tab on EMLYONforever.com, search for Australia and you can register to the group, and then you will find there Leo and Pierre-Yves contact details if you have any questions. And you can definitely ask any questions you have to the Australian alumni, the alumni who live in Australia. So feel free to connect to the community on the EMLYON alumni platform.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, maybe we jump in with Pooja. I mean, very happy to take any question if you have more. But yeah, currently we are recruiting for few profiles for clients. I've sent you basically the link to our job board on australianstalent.com. On the top in the menu, you'll find the job board, on LinkedIn page. But we're recruiting at the moment in marketing. We've got few marketing roles, including SEO specialist roles, search engine optimization roles, or Google Ads experts. We've got other positions as a startup program manager for a large cloud provider. We've got, I don't know, Pooja, help me, how many? I mean, we've got, like over probably 15 positions open at the moment. ourselves with Australians. We're looking for a couple of interns in talent acquisition, in the talent acquisition team to work with Pooja, and an event and marketing intern to work on our other brand, startupandangels.com, and to help us to be found online. Yeah, like the weather is finally good again in Sydney. So, you know, if you want to join the lucky country, don't hesitate to contact us. You know, Pierre-Yves, I'm sure EY is also recruiting like hell. Everyone is recruiting in Australia.
Sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on the back of that, I know we've been a bit dramatic to, you know, like with the visa and the cultural shock and everything. Yeah, because we're just keen to, you know, like make those of you who will join, like to, we just want to set you up for success, basically. But the experience is definitely worth it. You know, I would dare you to find someone like a French person who came to Australia and regret it. I'm yet to find one. So definitely, if you're wondering, oh yeah, maybe I'll give it a shot, but I'm not too sure. My advice would be yes, try to take the shot, secure a way to work, and try to do your homework before. But it's definitely worth a try. And I think we completely stunned everyone.
Yeah.
Any questions, anyone? No?
No.
Okay, so thank you very much, Leo, Pooja, and Pierre-Yves for being our speakers today. It was really, really interesting, and also I think it was one of the most attractive destinations that we have covered when we talk to employment. So thank you very much for sharing all your tips and experience. Thank you to our audience for participating to this webinar today. If you've missed the beginning, or if you want to go back to the slides, the webinar and the slides will be posted on the EMLYON alumni platform in the next days. Feel free to contact and connect with Leo, Pooja, and Pierre-Yves, either through the EMLYON alumni platform or through LinkedIn. We hope to see you again for our next webinars. So the next one will be on the 10th of May, and we will cover employment in Brazil. And then we have the US on the 14th of June and Canada in July. So feel free to register from now on to the next sessions. And thank you again to our three speakers for their time.
Cool. And thank you, Florian and Claire, for all the prep and the work. I can only imagine how many hours you put in. So yeah, thanks a lot for that.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great night or have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.